So we're delighted to have our guest speaker, HOWARD Chancellor, join us, and I think we'll get started, if that's okay with everyone.
Sure.
Perfect. So firstly, welcome everyone. For those that don't know, my name's Jamie Knapp, and we're delighted to join you on this Next Gen Purusha webinar, which is a small team also consisting of Rick Troutman and Tadej Chadez, who many of you will also know. And today, as you're all aware, we've got our guest speaker, HOWARD Chancellor, and the short sort of context to this call today is that, as many of you will be aware, we actually plan to open our Java location in about mid-April. And then COVID-19 hit. And this, in a way, put the whole world on hold, or as we'd like to joke, put the whole world on Purusha, because it was such an inward time, such an inward experience, and it still is. And we really started wondering, would this inward time actually decrease the demand and desire for Java? But we actually found the opposite. We found that desire and demand for things like Java actually increased. And so we started sort of looking at alternative opportunities with Java temporarily on hold due to COVID-19. We started looking at other opportunities to see how we could involve guys like yourself on this experience of Next Gen Purusha. So that's sort of the context for the call today, about the brainstorming that's come out of that. And as a very short intro for HOWARD Chancellor, I've had the great pleasure to work with him on a number of projects, and he impresses me immensely. And it's almost like the more I get to know him, the more I get to work with him, the more he impresses me. And I think that's really one of the benefits, being on Next Gen Purusha, working with people like HOWARD Chancellor, having mentors like HOWARD Chancellor is really something special that I know I've been able to tap into, and many people have as well. And I think the one thing that I'd like to just highlight from what I've learned from HOWARD Chancellor is that everything that he has done in the movement, whether that be Dr. Nader's right-hand man or many of the projects that he's been able to lead and so on like that, has really come from embodying that silence on a daily basis on Purusha. He's been on Purusha for a number of years, and that is the one thing that really sticks out in my mind almost every day. So without further ado, I'd like to invite HOWARD Chancellor to talk to us about a few of these ideas that we're going to be presenting and sending out in a campaign very shortly. HOWARD Chancellor, over to you.
Okay, take you down. So first off, Jamie, I am failing miserably at having the notes in front of me. So I'm going to count on you to prompt me.
Yes,
I don't know if you all know Jamie's background. He worked in Australia at a company called Billabong, which is a famous surf company. And so I thought to, camaraderie ship with Jamie, that I would put on my best suit today and get into my favorite office. So I am out here saying hi to everybody. This is Billabong territory, and it's a beautiful day on the East Coast in the U.S. And Purusha is a very simple thing. It's not about what you do. It's not about accomplishing or anything. It's about realizing your inner potential. It's about having a lifestyle that allows you to focus on self-development and, basically to go for it. Because when you have all the responsibilities of the world, you got a wife, you got kids, you got the station wagon or the minivan, or it's very hard to find time. You have a job. It's hard to find time to give much to that development of consciousness. And that's why in India, there are these phases of life. People are householders and they go through these, they have their family and their work. And then when they get to be 60 or 60, 70 years old, then they, in theory, they go to the forest. It's not done that much. So rather than wait till we're 60 or 70 years old, Maharishi structured this program that allows us to be in a community. It's not a social thing. Purusha is not a social thing either. But we do have the opportunity to be with like-minded people, to be with the guys. And it's a lot of fun, actually. Because, it's just a lot of fun. It's like you're with this great group of guys and you're all focused on the highest in life. Food is there, you go for your meal, it's there, generally speaking. You have a place, you have a roof, you have people taking care of the facility. So you're really, there's not a lot of demand on your time. Now, we've had different phases and different layers sort of our Purusha program with Maharishi. And there were periods when we were very active and he had a lot of projects. And we were kind of the shock troops, doing all these things all over the world. And then he gradually brought us more and more inward, gave us less and less outward responsibility, and allowed us to be more and more, as he put it, steeping in that, like a tea bag, just sitting there, permeating. So we dive into the transcendent, and the transcendent becomes more and more familiar to us. And we also absorb it more and more. And then as we swing in activity, that becomes more stabilized. So it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And, there are people, I don't know how many people have been kind of officially, quote, on the Maharishi Purusha program over the years, certainly over 1,000. And a lot of them have gone out and, do have families and do have careers. And they look back at that time as most precious time in their life. And I was actually able to do studies at MIU. I was in Livingston Manor, New York, where we had a facility with 250 guys. And I was able to do my studies there for a PhD at MIU. And I know that's one of the options that we have for people that, you could be doing degree work or coursework and be doing it in that environment where you're clear of all the other distractions and able to be in West Virginia, for example, having that real deep dive, even as you're giving your attention to your studies. Same principle can be there for, maybe people have something they're doing to bring in some revenue, some income. And we've had, the ideal is that you don't have anything. You got a sponsor who's covering you, or your friends, or you're financially self-sufficient yourself. And that's the ideal. But for some people, the way they've managed to be on Purusha, because we have to be self-sufficient. We don't have a big endowment that can just, say, come on, just come here and it's all covered. So people have, we have had guys who have had some sort of a side operation where they're making some money. One example was a guy who did proofreading and editing. So he would get these piecework jobs, and he was able to make plenty of money, and yet he just did it for a couple hours a day, and he was on Purusha. So we're open at this time. We want to figure out what works. We know that sponsorship, people having to ask their friends to support them and all, that's not always an easy path. So we're looking at how to work things. We're also looking at how to raise money on behalf of new people. But it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And I encourage anybody who can look at where their situation is now and say, you know what? I could do this. I really could, And you might have some other plan and you're thinking I should go do this and I'm going to go do that. But having the opportunity to really be free of anything you have to do. And it can be challenging for some people. It's like we're so wound up and the world has wound us up and the mind is wound up, you know, and we're buzzing. And it's actually could be really hard not to do much of anything, to just sit quietly and close the eyes. But if you know what I'm saying, if you hear what I'm saying when I say, when you sit for meditation and you close your eyes and you feel that kind of like, whoa, I needed that, you know, my mind is buzzing. I'm settling down now. And you feel that letting go of transcending. And you feel that kind of washing away of what was bothering you or what was even not bothering you, but just, you know, occupying the mind. And you think, God, I love TM, it's great. Think of that where it's 24 hours, where you're taking that, like saying, I'm going to do this. I'm taking that. That's like a micro dive into the transcendent. Purusha is like a macro dive. You're taking it on the whole big picture of your life. It's Maharishi called it a 24-hour bliss program. So it's really, really, I cannot emphasize enough. It is really a precious opportunity because life ultimately is what we make of it. Our life is what we make of it. Nobody's going to solve our issues. Nobody's going to get inside our head and figure out, you know, whatever it is we're trying to figure out. And certainly nobody's going to transcend on our behalf and get us to kingdom of heaven within and help stabilize that over time. So wherever you envision your life going, it's like you want to build a big building, you got to dig a deeper foundation. So if you want to have success in life, whatever that may be, then you need that deep foundation. I find personally, my life now has got a lot of responsibility. It's just the way the karma flowed. But it's only possible on the foundation of 40 years almost. It's almost been 40 years that I've been on the Purusha program. And I was in Uttarkashi for 5 years, total deep silence, just, you know, not dealing with anybody, anything. And that is the foundation for this engagement now that makes life really fun. So that's, you know, that's really my message. And I'd love to hear any questions. Jamie, I know I hit a couple of the points you wanted to bring out in terms of options for people, but let's just dialogue our way through all of that.
Thanks, HOWARD Chancellor. It's a great intro to, I think, what the experience is. And I think just for the guys, I'll touch on some of the more concrete points and opportunities that are available on Next Gen Purusha, especially with what we've been talking about in the last sort of few weeks. HOWARD Chancellor, maybe if you could mute for a second. Yeah, that's great. Thanks. So as HOWARD Chancellor mentioned, one of the opportunities is really the chance to supercharge your studies. Some of you may be studying at MIU, and we really saw this opportunity as a chance this summer to kind of supercharge next semester's success. And that's kind of the message in short. We know we have a number of students that we're connected to, and they have a certain amount of a summer break, and we wanted to really make it as easy as possible for those guys to come for a dip in the absolute, whether it be 1 week, whether it be 6 weeks, whether it be 2 months. The other thing that we have is we find a lot of guys, you know, come for a short time and end up staying for a lot longer. But of course, we wanted to have that shorter time frame, that flexibility for anyone that can come in their summer break if they are studying. Because as HOWARD Chancellor said, this experience, I think Rick and Tade and myself all had, is that when you're studying and or doing some work or professional activity on Purusha, there's an experience that many of the Rajas have kind of had with Maharishi. And I remember Raja Peter sort of talking about, you know, Maharishi really stretching their boundaries You know, if you want to sort of create a diamond, you've got to put it under a lot of pressure. And in that context, the dynamism between the Deep Purusha program and then bouncing out into activity is that stretching that is happening every single day. Boundaries just getting stretched. And this is, I think, for many of the younger generation, we think, you know, how do we get to have that experience where Maharishi is sending them on crazy projects and stretching their boundaries every single day? How do we get to have that experience? And I think the answer is that Maharishi is now more universal, more absolute, and it's nature that does that to us. It's we have the simple desire to have that experience, and nature provides. So that's one thing. I think this stretching of the mind, stretching of the boundaries, that is incredibly strengthening on this next gen Purusha experience. So supercharging your studies being one of the opportunities. As Raja Chancellor also mentioned, the chance to work and evolve. Study or work could be similar sort of context. Obviously, if you're working, it could be, you know, 2 to 4 hours a day. 4 would be a maximum. Then why not do that work in the presence of a Purusha group? And I say that also from personal experience in that, again, we've had many people, I've been asked this question many times, you know, what is the benefit that I'm getting actually in the group versus doing my program either at home or maybe at the center or something like that? And I think, as Raja Chancellor alluded to, the single word I would say is focus. It's that chance to remove all the distractions, all of the pulls on your responsibility, on your time, on everything that you have to do, and really focus on what is scintillating in your heart of hearts to do. And personally, this sounds kind of funny, but I feel like I've been on Purusha for about 1.5 years now. And I'm now 37, almost 38. I feel like I got to retire at age 36. And what I mean by that is that even if I had $1 million, I would still be doing exactly the same thing that I'm doing now. I'd be doing my program and I'd be working on Next Gen Purusha. And to have that feeling of being retired and doing what you want with your free time, whether that just be enjoying nature to its fullest, whether that just be the camaraderie that you experience with your friends that is always there, whether that be diving into some activity, some studies. Naturally, some of us are more action orientated than others. That opportunity is there, and it really gets impacted with a lot of power when you actually fuse it with that Purusha group power. Because the Purusha group, it's almost like I find many times, and many of you will have had this experience on a rounding course or in the dome or things like this, that you may just be lying there and you're just feeling that you're getting pumped with Purusha vibes or pumped with the transcendence, even if you're just lying there not meditating. And that is the experience that you're tapping into. As soon as you walk into the building, you feel the transcendence just permeating every sort of cell of your being. And that is the experience that you won't get necessarily at home alone, out in the world as much. So that's sort of a second opportunity. And the last one that we had is really for change makers, guys that really want to change the world. And I put them into 2 classes, being those that are steadfast in changing themselves and really want to reach the highest as quickly as possible. And also those that are steadfast on changing the world, more in the outer, more in the relative. And it's very interesting for myself, being a more action-orientated guy, that I've heard Maharishi talk many times about the fact that being on Purusha, doing long program, is the most powerful way that you can have a positive impact on the world. And I think for many of us, we hear this on an intellectual level and we understand it to a certain extent. But there have been days on Purusha where I come out after lunch and you feel the reality of that. You feel the reality that the program I just did, the bliss I am radiating, is actually having that influence on society, on the atmosphere, that the atmosphere is getting just pumped full of good vibes from the work that I just did in program. And having that physical experience of that impact that you are having on a physical level to the environment, it's really a game changer. It's like reading the Bhagavad Gita again 10 years later and going, wow, I just got so much more out of it than I did 10 years ago. And one thing that I would just add, I'd love to go to a couple of experiences from Mark and Greg in a second. But one thing I just wanted to add is that I think for many of us, Next Gen Purusha, it's almost like a moving target. If you asked me what Next Gen Purusha is or what that experience is a year and a half ago, my answer would have been completely different. Every 6 months, my answer is different. And the reason is that Next Gen Purusha is almost like a moving target in that the target is moving because the target is evolving the same way that we ourselves are also evolving. So the more we evolve, the more that we actually understand what the program is. And even for myself, as someone that's very passionate about communication, speaking with the likes of Rick and Raja Chancellor, I see that they have so much sort of more depth of knowledge in terms of putting that experience into words. At times it is very, very difficult to put that experience, that Next Gen Purusha experience into tangible words, because there is so much happening, so much transformation happening on a very deep level, that it's just words that the soul can feel, but the mouth can't quite articulate. And so we've done our best to try and articulate it for you, but really it's the taste of that experience that starts to articulate it on that deep, most unmanifest level. So at this point, I'd like to, thanks Luke, at this point I'd like to go to a couple of experiences. And I'd like to invite first Mark to just give us a little experience. So we've basically got Mark Chavez and also Greg Dunlop are going to give us a couple of experiences. And these guys have been on between 6 and 12 months. So again, you're getting to hear these experiences from guys that have really just taken that chunk of the donut and going, hey, this is actually what it tastes like. So Mark, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Jamie. I'm here in West Virginia at the Purusha in the USA, and I've been here since late fall last year, and it's been a really profound and delicious experience. For me, I was a business person, very busy, made a lot of money, and I would always want to spend money to invest on my self-development and becoming a better person. And I would do seminars, and I would spend time with different mentors and teachers. And I never really had the time to sort of implement it in my life. I had glimpses of times where I could bring it up and use it. And I realized when the opportunity was given for this location that it was an investment. It was the best investment I could ever make for my life, but also for anything and everything I do. Like Jamie and Raja Chancellor were saying, any focalized activity that I do, it's I would say it's like 200%. And so coming here and being able to spend time and really enjoy the atmosphere and go deep with the program, it allows me to really see and experience when I do the activity, the difference between now and before. You know, I use an analogy of like, you know, with all the expertise that I've had in construction and building and business, I could build a house. I could build a house anywhere but I can't be comfortable at home because I don't know how to be at home. And now I'm building how to be at home. And regardless of what the house looks like or where it is, I can take this with me anywhere. And so this level of experience and this expertise is what I feel is needed, not just for myself, but for the whole world, because everybody's so busy doing things that we forget. We forget the most important thing, and that's, being. And so I really appreciate this opportunity to be here, and I'm going to invest as much as I can. It's definitely worth it. And again, for me personally, I've released a lot of stress that I've had in my previous life, anxiety, stress, not being able to sleep comfortably, just like even when it rained in Los Angeles, you're wondering, is my house going to blow over? Are my, trash cans, are my belongings going to just go with the wind? And here, it happens and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about that. Everything is solid here. And then I just listen and I enjoy the beautiful silence and the rain and the wind and the birds and the environment. It's just amazing. And the people are great. So I would definitely invite anybody and everybody to come and experience it. Like Maharishi says, just 1 year is not a lot to give, but that 1 year can give you another life. And that's what I'm seeing, that I have a whole new life ahead of me from this investment. So thank you, Jay Gurudev.
Thanks, Mark. That was awesome and great to see you. I love the tagline, building how to be. That just really was awesome. Thanks for your experience, Mark. And I'd now like to pass it over to Greg. Greg, over to you.
Thanks. Hi, thanks, Jamie. And thanks, Roger Chancellor and Rick and Tade. And Mark, it's brilliant to hear you as well. So I'm Greg, I'm from the UK. I joined Purusha back in December. I was at the Brahmastan in India for about 2 months. And then the plan was to go to Indonesia, but yeah, as you've heard, that's because of coronavirus, that couldn't happen. So I'm now back in the UK at the moment, but I'm planning on rejoining Purusha in sort of July in Denmark, hopefully, but we'll see. I've only been given about 2.5 minutes, so I better kind of cut to the chase. But so I've set aside about 2 years to be on Purusha, and for me, that basically comes down to, whatever I do after this time, whether I stay on Purusha for longer or whether I go back into the world, this is by far and away the best thing I can do right now. And as Jamie said, it's kind of like supercharging myself for the future. I love that. Maybe it might sound a bit cheesy, but that's what it is. It's supercharging myself for the future. And for me, all that really matters for me in this life is awakening to who or what I truly am. Everything else is great, but everything else is sort of detailed and secondary. It's all the other stuff is great, having things and achieving things, that's all wonderful. I intend to do a lot more of that. But if I'm not grounded in being, if I'm not grounded in, who or what I am, then I'm just going to get dropped, like, kind of moved around by that. I'm going to sort of be a slave to all that and never really enjoy that. And if I equate myself with what I have or what I do, then I'm always going to feel not good enough. So I guess in a sense it's about shifting that emphasis away. And funnily enough, when I do shift that emphasis away from doing towards being, then I get far better at achieving and doing stuff. And that's basically why I joined Purusha. One is, if you're interested in enlightenment and awakening or whatever you want to call it, then this is the place to be. And then 2 is that, whatever I do externally in life, I'm much more effective when I'm grounded in the stillness and the silence. For example, I'm an artist, and I found that my best ideas, my best artwork, they've all come when I've been on long meditations, long grounding courses. And for me, Purusha is basically, it's just like, it's a factory for higher states of consciousness, basically. You're surrounded by these guys, some of whom have been on it a lot of whom have been on it for more than 30 years. And they're just steeped in this stillness, and you can't help but soak it up. As I mentioned, I started at the Brahmastan, and that was an amazing place to start Purusha. you're able to hear about 1,300 pundits just all chanting at once. And that's a ridiculous thing. It's one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And also having spent most of my life in England, getting away from all these cold, dark winters was a huge relief. All this basically a sunny, hot summer, winter, which was amazing for me. There's a few doubts that I had before I came on Purusha, but I think that after having spent a short time there, now I'm certain that's where I'm meant to be at the moment. And like on running retreats, and when you're meditating, you don't often notice the effect it's having at the time. But I think that afterwards, when I left the Brahmistan, it just felt incredible what had happened. I could just feel this real shift within me. Like this sort of background of awareness kind of was permeating deeper into my life and becoming a part of my daily existence. I apologize if I sound like I'm being a bit evangelical. I guess I am being evangelical because I've only got a short period of time, and because I feel incredibly fortunate to have this experience. As you might have heard, you're able to join Purusha for as little as a week, or a couple of weeks, or a month. I'd suggest going as long as you can, a month or more, maybe, at least. But it seems to me, the question really isn't, should I join Purusha? It's more, how long should I join Purusha for? And that seems like a good place to stop. So I'll leave it there. Screw Dev.
Thanks, Greg. It's really interesting to hear the experiences of other people that have joined Purusha and comparing it to your own experience. And I think what Greg said about this factory for higher states of consciousness is it to a T. I think the other thing that inspires me is that for myself, I never actually intended to stay for a certain set amount of time. But it was really the feeling that as long as it feels good, I'll stay. And if it doesn't, I'll go. And the feeling, I think like many of the guys who joined in West Virginia as well, the feeling just felt better and better and better every single day. So that's something that was really unexpected. I'd like to go over to Tade. He's going to show us a couple of the locations that we're offering.
Jamie?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd like to just comment on the experiences.
Go for it.
Just briefly. One of the things that you said was, a beautiful description of the inability to describe the experience. And that's because that experience is what Maharishi described as that place from which speech returns. Because the intellect can't penetrate that. It's the transcendent, and that's what Purusha is. And so it really is a challenge to describe the indescribable. So that was just in your own experience of not being able to describe, shows that you're having that, very profound experience of the growth of consciousness and the growth of the experience of the transcendent. And then Mark was talking about how he felt like coming home. He was like, he built these homes, but he wasn't comfortable in the home. And Maharishi speaks on the, I'm trying to remember, I think it's I don't know if it's the third day or first day of checking when people learn TM. And there are these specific tapes, videos of Maharishi associated with each of those days. But he describes how that experience of transcending is the experience of coming back home. Because ultimately that's what we are, and all of this diversity out in front of us, I realize I'm not on video, all the diversity kind of in front of us that, our senses, and we're always outward, 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 outward. And that absorbs our mind, it absorbs our attention. And when we transcend in those 20 minutes of the TM or longer in the cities, we're allowing the mind to disengage from its outward engagement. And that's also what Greg was describing, was that quality of having that opportunity to go in. And again, it's a macro level of transcending. On a micro level, we transcend during our program. But on a macro level, that's the growth of what Maharishi called cosmic consciousness. and that's the first higher state of enlightenment. And that process is on a macro level, on our daily level. So Purusha gives us that chance, just like we sit and meditate, and it's worth taking that time. So sometimes in your life, it's worth taking a macro dive that's a year or 2 years, or in some instances, a lot longer than that. So these are really beautiful experiences you're all describing, and it's very inspiring to see, this is an experience that has gone through the ages. And 5,000 years ago, people went to the ashrams in the Himalayas and surrendered to a master for this same experience. And it's described in the Upanishads, it's described in all of the traditions almost of the whole world. And here it is being offered to us on a silver platter. And it's quite extraordinary what has happened in the world, that Maharishi has made this available. What was typically, people would, just read about it and say, that sounds really like something great, but they wouldn't know what it was. So go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thanks, HOWARD Chancellor. And I'm glad you mentioned the cities because that actually jogs my mind to another point. We're going to go to Tade in a second to tell us a little bit about the locations that are available at the moment. But the third opportunity for those of you that are meditators and haven't yet done the cities, we're actually working on an opportunity to basically come for 2 months and get your cities in the first month, and then spend another month on Purusha after that as a minimum commitment. And we really sort of saw this as like an ability to fill two needs with one deed. The interesting part is, for many of the European International Purusha, about half of the people that are interested in Purusha are meditators. So we're definitely seeing this crying demand to actually get their cities and join as soon as possible. So that's an opportunity that's currently still in the works and will only be available in Denmark. But it is something that we're working on, and we'll definitely keep you guys updated with the coming campaigns and so on like that. So at this point, I'd like to just pass it over to Tade to tell us a little bit and show us a few pictures from the couple of locations that we're working on at the moment, considering the COVID-19 restrictions. Tade, over to you.
Hi guys. This is the Eastern View in West Virginia. And this is the view which you get when you get out of the flying hall. This is every time you see this expansive view, which is just going, miles and miles away. And this is the campus. The square building is a flying hall, and this is the top of the hill where most of the buildings are. And this is Denmark. This is the place which we will occupy this July, and be there for a few months until we cannot get to Indonesia, to Java, which is still our priority location. And this is also a Vastu campus, and we have available 11 rooms at the moment, and we still have some rooms free, so everyone who is interested can contact us. And yeah, we are really looking forward to start with this group, which will be totally new. It's basically all of us, all guys will be new on Purusha, so it will be a very exciting adventure. And this is our campus in Indonesia, in Java. This is the newly built campus, which is waiting for us to get there. It is, right now we have 16 rooms available, and as soon as the borders open and flights resume, then we will go there, and this will become a permanent location for Purusha. It's on a really nice place, and this campus is built just for us. So something which some really exciting future project and adventure for all of us. So yeah, so that's all from my side. So I would hand it back to Jamie.
Thanks, Tadej. Yeah, I think just briefly on the 3 locations, with Java, we were set to start in mid-April with full capacity at 16 people. We had a couple of the older gen there as well. But really, I cannot think of something more exciting. It really feels like an adventure. From the experiences that we've had, for some that have been on the International Young Meditators course or similar courses, even just being at Udon with Tadej and just being with 1 or 2 younger guys, there's obviously more at West Virginia at the moment. Going for walk and talk after lunch, after program, there's just this creativity, this scintillating intelligence that really permeates every discussion that is really sort of priceless. And I can't wait to kind of be there, whether it be Denmark or Java or West Virginia, to experience that with even more young guys. It's just going to be that experience amplified. So guys, I think that's kind of the overall summary of what we wanted to talk about today. We'd like to invite a few questions and we'll do our best to answer them. If you can either physically raise your hand or also on the chat, sorry, not in the chat, bottom of your window, there's reactions. On the left, there's the little raise hand reaction. And Tadej will unmute you to ask your question. So yeah, who would like to go first? Johannes has got a question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you first of all for that introduction. And having been at the Purusha campus in West Virginia just for 2 weeks, I can really say that it has been quite a deep and very soothing experience. You mentioned that it is possible to also combine the experience of Purusha with studying. I'm currently pursuing the PhD in Maharishi Vedic Science starting in the next semester, and I'm just wondering, what would that look like? What options are there for combining studying and actually living on the Purusha campus?
Thanks, Johannes. I think in short, anything that you can do in 3 to 4 hours a day, your time is kind of, apart from program, which is kind of set, your time is flexible in that 3 to 4 hours a day. But I'd actually like to invite Rick Troutman. He's got a few guys that are actually studying there in West Virginia right now. And Rick, would you like to comment further on this one and maybe give us a few more insights and details about that experience?
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. And also, I'd like to cut to the chase on a couple other questions that I'm anticipating, which is, what does it cost to start? How do you deal with COVID, stuff like that? Because I know those are questions people want to have answers to. So to answer your question, Johannes, there's 5 of the guys here in the program, and they receive government loans, and it's up to them what they do with that money. And we have a minimum cost per month for the first year of $400. So they elect, if they so like, to use that government money to cover the cost of their stay here, which is room, board, and all that. And then they have time in the afternoon, late morning, afternoon, and evening if they need to skip. We have absolutely wonderful knowledge in the evening, but if they have to skip it for studies, they know that they're free to do that. So Peter is on the call too, and he's doing his master's in integrative medicine, so he can answer what his experience has been studying and being on the program here. And before I ask Peter to comment, so the cost to be here is $400 a month. If for some reason that's impossible to come up with, we may be able to help you out there with the sort of a scholarship program. And then with regard to the COVID, we still have an issue here in the US unlike in Denmark, where you're able to go there for as little as a week. We just had an outbreak in our next door neighboring town, Romney. So we have to be very cautious of people.
For the US, there is a 2-week quarantine, which is being sensitive to the surrounding areas. Sorry, one sec. Which is being sensitive to the surrounding areas and also the older population at West Virginia. There's currently no quarantine in place for Denmark at this point. In terms of costs, we're looking at $400 US a month for West Virginia. And starting in Denmark, it'll be, I believe, €600 per month if you're coming for a minimum of 2 months. Or if you're coming for shorter than 2 months, then it'll be about €210 per week. So Denmark is, just to make clear, it's going to be a minimum 2-month opportunity. And then as soon as we're able to go to Java, we'll be making that transition to Java, which is an even cheaper cost, averaging sort of around €400 or a bit more type of thing, 420, 430, that sort of thing. But really, we've got so many people that want to just get started, which is why we're looking at Denmark, because we believe there's an opportunity that will be available sooner than Java in itself. As we mentioned before, the minimum stay is 1 week, but we're really going to be looking for people that are looking to stay longer. And as we said, 2 months is really ideal to get a taste of it. And from when can you join? With West Virginia in the US, from mid-June would be the earliest. And also from Denmark would be about the 1st of July that we'll be looking to kick those 2 locations off, considering the current restrictions. Let me just have a look. I see there's a question from Leander. Starting. Okay, and contact is us. You can probably best, maybe Tade, you can put in the chat, which is transcend@nextgenpurusha.org. That'll go straight to all 3 of us, Rick, Tade, and myself, and we will happily get in contact with you as soon as possible. And we'd also like to talk to you more on a one-to-one basis about your situation, which I know Rick and Tade connect with almost everyone in that context as well. As we mentioned, if you're looking to do some activity, whether it be for finances or for study, then around 3 to 4 hours a day. 4 can be a little bit of a stretch, but it's definitely possible. And we definitely wouldn't plan on more than that. If you're planning on sort of 5 or more, then you may need to sort of reconsider. Having said that, it would still be worth talking that over with Rick and Tade about your unique situation if you've got questions around that. But generally outside of program, it's flexible and you've got that free time to kind of use as you wish. It could be just enjoying nature, enjoying friends, study, or some work, some professional activity, etc. We've also got a couple of opportunities in the US around the Garden Project or kitchen/cook manager. If you're needing some extra funds to stay on Purusha for a longer time, that possibility is also there. You can talk about that with Rick. And yeah, those are small opportunities at the moment that may contribute to your room and board. And of course, we're also keeping our ear to the ground through HOWARD Chancellor about online opportunities within the movement that you may want to contribute to some, if you're needing extra funds, you may want to contribute to some professional activity. Then we're working with HOWARD Chancellor, might be things like transcribing or online marketing, things like that come up from time to time. And obviously that needs to be compatible with the person's skill set and so on like that. So we're definitely keeping our feelers out for opportunities like that as we go along. So that's kind of the roundup. I'd like to invite potentially Rick again. Rick, is there anything you want to add to what I've just said, or HOWARD Chancellor?
Nothing from me.
Perfect. Or does anyone else have any other questions? Please just raise your hand. with the reaction function down the bottom, and we'd be more than happy to answer those questions. Yeah, Peter'd like to share his experience studying.
I would just like to say that Denmark is starting July 1st. And Leander asked for a price. It's 600 euros per month, and the cook will be Sam Suete. So he's also supposed to be very good, and he wants to stay on Purusha after that, so he's ideal for the job. About the approval process, you just apply. We have a very short application form, and you need a couple contacts from your recommending governors. This has to be two governors that knows you for at least 6 months, and that's it. You know, you have to be in a good health, and then you can join Purusha. It's a very, very similar than to applying to a rounding course.
Thanks, Tade. Is there any more questions? I think Peter would like to give a short experience. He's actually studying on Purusha at the moment. But before we go to that, is there any more questions that people would like to have answered?
Giorgio is asking if we would have to miss knowledge sessions if we work for 2 to 3 hours a day.
Yeah, I think the answer is no. I think if you're doing 4 hours, you probably would have to miss the knowledge sessions, generally speaking. 2 to 3 hours a day, I think, is very possible. Quite easy to achieve that and not miss the knowledge sessions. Do we have any more other questions today or coming through?
No.
So yeah, we might go to Peter. Peter's actually studying on Next Gen Purusha in West Virginia. And Peter, if you'd like to give your short experience on what that's been like, that would help give us some more context. Peter, over to you.
Hello. So hopefully I don't cut out. But so studying has worked pretty well for me. Right now I'm getting a really good grade in my class, and I found, yeah, I have about 2 hours in the afternoon to take for studying, and then I have some time at night, and I normally go to bed early. You know, I could stay up until 10, but I try to go to bed by 9. And then I do more studying in the morning. You know, if you wake up early, you can do studying then. And then there's a little bit of time between program and lunch. So you can get 4 hours of studying and not too difficult without, you know, if you really focus, you get 4 hours and you don't have to miss the meeting. Yeah, especially if you wake up early. But it's a really great support to be on the program and be meditating, and then your mind just is clear, and for me, I feel like I am able to process the knowledge at a deep level, and things just come out smoothly when I need to do homework, and able to even, I'm just doing a part-time master's program. It's not, so that's not as intensive as maybe a PhD. I guess Johannes is gone, so he kind of wanted to know. But I feel like I've been able to go above and beyond even what's required of me for school, and I really like that.
Nice. Thanks, Peter. I think unless there's any other questions, then we might wrap it up for today. Like to thank you all for joining. And yeah, as I said, Tade will put in the chat, transcend@nextgenpurusha.org If you want to connect, we'd love to chat to you. If you have any other questions, if you want to talk about your unique situation, whether that be around work, study, or the city's opportunity that we've got going in Denmark. We'd love to see you all there. So a big Jai Guru Dev, thanks for everyone for joining. And yeah, we'll see you in the Transcendent.